Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, Star Wars nerds? Happy May the 4th, and welcome to a very special episode of the Multiverse Report. Today, we are recapping our favorite Star Wars Force users. From Mos Eisley Cantina, to Echo Base, to Jabba's Palace, to Gungan City, to the Geonosian Arena, to the Jedi Temple, to Maz's Castle, to Canto Bight Casino, to the wreckage of Death Star 2. My name is Mike Gibson. With me as always is Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
I don't have a good segue. All I know is I like Star Wars.
You don't need one.
No.
You don't need a good segue.
No.
It's Star Wars Day.
It is.
Happy May the 4th, my friend. May the Force be with you.
Indeed. Same to you. As a lapsed Catholic, I always want to say, and also with you, and it just is really awkward.
I always say, and also with you. That's my classic response. And to be honest, I'm shocked that you did not say, and also to you back to me.
I'm like, I consciously fight it for some weird reason because it brings me back to shaking hands with people in a pew.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But it's not just the two of us, as is, I guess this year makes it a tradition.
Right.
Because last year was our first official special ranking episode for May the 4th. And so this year, we're bringing him back. Please welcome to the show, friend of the pod, Matt Beseda.
Hi, guys. So awesome to be here. Second year in a row. I absolutely love doing this. It's one of my favorite May the 4th pastimes, and so excited to be doing it again.
One of your favorite pastimes that you've only done one other time.
Well, yes, but it's one of my favorite May the 4th traditions.
Yes, that you've only done one other time. But mine
hey,
too.
traditions have to start somewhere. Traditions have to start
right.
somewhere.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And also with you, have you heard the John Mulaney bit where they changed it to also with your spirit? It's very funny. Check it out.
Oh no, I've heard churches that do that, but yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, they held it for 2,000 years and changed it just to spite John.
Sounds like a Mulaney bit.
Yeah. Does he talk about Star Wars at all in that bit?
He does not.
Then I don't care about it because we're only talking about Star Wars here tonight.
Yeah.
So we weren't. It took us a little bit to decide what we were going to rank. Obviously, the first year we did it. Obviously, you do the movies, right?
Right. Simple, clean.
And we talked about maybe ranking the TV shows, maybe ranking lightsaber battles came up, and we thought that characters would be a strong one to do. Then we thought, ooh, there's a lot of characters, so why don't we drill down a little bit and get a little more specific? And we landed on Force users. Now we're using the term Force users instead of, Jedi or Sith, because deep Star Wars nerds know not everyone that uses the Force identifies as a Jedi or a Sith. There are different Force religions, or, you can use the Force and not have to be a Jedi, all that kind of stuff.
Which actually will come into play later when we have our write-ins from the populace, because as has become tradition, we put this out to the people and put a poll out as to who your favorite light and or dark side Force user were. Got a bunch of responses, and we're going to go over them as well within our I was going to say an hour, but there's no way it's going to be an hour within our show.
You never know. You never know, because I feel like debating, there's not much. I mean, not that we debated the movies last year, but characters may mean a lot to a certain person and may mean very little to another person. So like, I may reference a character that neither of you guys really have much to say about or dig into at all. So who knows how long we'll go. Last year was 2 hours, I believe. We talked for a little over 2 hours about those films. Took us 2 hours to get through 11 movies.
That tracks.
So we're only doing 10. One less thing we're counting down this year. We're doing top 5 and top 5. So maybe that'll shave off a good 5 minutes.
And like you said last year, Mike, this is just our opinions. This isn't a heated discussion. No one's going to be calling anyone a Mary Sue. It's very much friends talking about something that we love very much.
I mean, depending on the outcome of this, I may have to drive down to your apartment, Matt, and have words.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be okay.
That is a great point, Matt, and you're right. I did specify that last year, and I should again, that these are just our personal favorite favorite Force user characters, as last year was just our favorite, our personal ranking of the films, our opinions. We're not here to yell at each other. We're not here to talk about how George Lucas is a terrible writer, or that Kathleen Kennedy can't run Lucasfilm, or that women shouldn't be in Star Wars or whatever. Like, one, I don't believe any of those things. Two, if you came looking for people that were gonna yell and scream about how Star Wars is failing and in the toilet, then you listen to the wrong thing, and you should just turn this off right now. If you're here because you love Star Wars and you want to hear three friends that love each other talking about movies and characters that they also love, then you're in the right place, and welcome. So thanks for coming. Before we dive in, I asked this question last year. I'm going to ask it again for you guys. Was there... We're gonna count down dark side Force users first, then we're gonna go to light side Force users. 5 and 5. When you guys were making your list, were there any specific criteria that you kept in, that you were going by? Were you like, how were you just going on your gut instinct or your feelings, or was it just like, did you get all like mathy about it? Like, how did you calculate these 5? Was there any criteria specific?
I think one of the things I thought about was, how they use the Force. So one of my dark side users doesn't have a lot of film. It doesn't have a lot of doesn't use the Force a lot. He's more of a technician, if you will, with a lightsaber, but he's still a Force user. So I consider him a Force user, but he's not very high on my list because...
You put Matt the radar technician on there?
Yes. Yes, I did. With TK421. It's what their abilities, how they affect the people around them, and the story that goes on.
Sure.
Mine, I went more story beats, like what connected, what characters connected with me. Which the more I thought about it, my dark side flopped about 17 times, and my top 3 on my light side were I was just juggling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was. I was literally like, I changed it probably about 7 or 8 times in the last couple of days.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, because and I can see that, because I approached this more character too. I kind of said, okay, 1, does this character use the Force?
Yes.
If yes, then
flowchart.
Then where are they? How much do I love them as a character?
Yeah.
Because, and like kind of what you said, Matt, I look at, I think it was one of the hosts of Star Wars Minute said this once, and I completely agree, where he said that he looks at being able to use the Force as like being able to play an instrument or something. Like, I play guitar differently than, either of you guys would play guitar, or differently than Jimi Hendrix plays guitar. Jimi Hendrix plays differently than John Lennon, plays differently than Jimmy Page, plays differently than Jack White, plays differently than Billy Joe Armstrong. Or, it's like, just because you can do it doesn't mean you're going to do it the exact same way. And that's kind of how I look at the Force. And so, like, just because someone doesn't use it all the time doesn't mean that they don't belong on this list. Or maybe someone's not as powerful with it doesn't mean they don't belong on this list necessarily, because it's our favorite Force user characters, not who's more powerful, not who's the best Jedi of all time or whatever. Like, I don't necessarily think that, my number 1 light side Force user, say, for example, do I think they're the greatest Force user of all time? Not necessarily, but they're just my favorite. So kind of separating those two things a little bit.
Figuring Dan is not the only person to whale jizz in the galaxy.
I also think there's a comparison to be made there
No
you know,
explanation of that at all for people
yeah,
who don't know.
yeah.
Amazing. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No. It's going back to guitar players.
Whale jizz.
Someone can play the guitar and not consider themselves a musician, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the two religions of Jedi and Sith, and having more than that.
Right. Yeah. Well, because like for example, like Broom Kid at the end of Last Jedi, he's not a Jedi. He's just a kid that can use the Force.
Right.
And we don't know what happened to him. So
I mean, in Legends, you had the Ankh-Ti monks, and you have the Night Sisters, and you have all these other
Night
groups,
Sisters is a good example. Yeah,
that weren't Jedi or Sith, and they were still. And again, the Night Sisters will come into play later, but there's a lot. There's a spectrum out there. Now, for this list, it was mildly hilarious. I went down to Funky Town Comics and Vinyl, our wonderful sponsors, and asked both Jesse and Jeff to fill out this. And Jesse filled it out within like 3 seconds, knew exactly where he was going, exactly what he wanted out of it.
Yep.
Jeff was like, literally looked at me, he's like, really? These questions? He's like, I got to think about that. Like he had to actually step away and think about it. And it's like, I've noticed a lot of people are of that mindset of like, you either know, or it's like, oh God, who is my favorite?
Right.
So,
all right,
we've gone, 10 plus minutes without even talking about a single Force user.
Well, perfect amount of time, I think, to serve as an intro.
Okay.
For this, you guys ready to dive in?
Sure. Do we have any honorable mentions out there?
Ooh, I don't know. Well, I feel like maybe we should save honorable mentions until we get through, because then that'll
good.
Honorable mentions will color what our lists will be.
Good thinking.
I have an honorable mention for Light Side, but we're not starting with Light Side. So
okay.
Anyway.
Or honorable mentions apparently. So
yeah, we decided that we are going to do the ranking similarly to how we did last year, where we're not going to talk about we're not going to have a discussion about a character until either all three of us have mentioned that character, or say if Matt mentions a character that Steve and I do not have on our list, then we can have a general discussion about that character. So we're going to wait for that just so we don't repeat conversations and things like that. So, okay. So Dark Side Force users. Number 5, Matt, as the guest of this podcast, would you like to go first?
Yes. Number 5, I picked someone who is a very troubled soul that fought with the dark side for a while, and that is Kylo Ren.
Oh,
all right,
good choice.
Actually, my number 5 as well.
Ah, great choice.
Do you have him higher, Mike?
We will not be talking about Kylo Ren just now.
Okay.
However, my number 5. Now I feel like I don't know. My number 5 is the Emperor.
Okay. He is not
huge, crazy, bug-eyed look from Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, are
because he's so low?
Are we talking about him now or later? Do you have him higher on your list, Matt?
Palpatine?
Big Papa Palpatine.
I have him higher.
Okay. So it's not discussion time.
For the record, I have him at number 10 on my list.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So Steve went above and beyond. Matt and I made top 5 lists, as was the assignment. Steve made top 15 lists.
Well, my brain couldn't. I started going Legends, and I was like, shit, I got to put him on there somewhere. And then it just kept going, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Wow. Okay.
So
wild.
none of our number fives.
Okay, now I can't wait till we can talk about him because yeah. So yeah,
yeah, that would be great. Can I ask a question about someone that I don't know if he is technically a Force user or not?
Yeah, sure.
General Grievous.
He's not a Force user to my knowledge.
That's what I thought. He, from what I understand, he's trained in the Jedi arts.
Well, I believe from what I remember, yeah, I believe Count Dooku / Darth Tyrannus trained him to wield a lightsaber, but I don't believe he uses the Force.
No,
and that's what I thought. I had been thinking about that last couple days.
Yeah.
Well, I should have been doing other things, but anyway.
I'm always thinking about Star Wars while I should be doing other things.
Yeah.
You know what else you should be doing, Matt? Telling us your number 4.
What's it?
That's
number
right.
4. Number 4 was an interesting one for me. I think he is. They told his story, and then they got a chance to really tell his story in the later years. And he's a character I enjoy very much, and that is Darth Maul.
Yeah, we're not talking about him yet.
I'm not talking about him yet. No discussion as of yet.
But I will agree with your sentiment.
Yeah.
Were it not for animation, he would be nowhere near this list for me.
Right.
My number 4 was one of the aforementioned Night Sisters. Trained in the dark side and an apprentice to a Sith Lord, but not a Sith. Asajj Ventress.
Interesting. So you count her as you count her as a dark side user.
There can only be 2.
It right, because she was a dark side user. We see her leave the Sith and go on to do other things.
True, I guess. And especially if you watch recent animation, there is even more neutrality, but my brain goes back to her as a dark side user.
Right. My brain does the same thing because my 4 is also Asajj Ventress.
Matt, we talking about her now or later?
We could talk about her now because she is not on my list.
Okay.
All right.
So I did bring visual props too.
Ooh, look at that.
So that is
some glare going there.
A lot of glare.
Great.
But a John Tyler Christopher Asajj Ventress cover.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve. Pretty much what you things that you said I agree with. I think she, like, I thought about it, I was like, well, yeah, she's a dark side user when we meet her in Clone Wars or whatever. Both versions of Clone Wars, by the way. Which is the first time I saw her was in the
original Tartakovsky.
I thought she was amazing.
Oh, 100%.
And then she gets so fleshed out in the Clone Wars series and beyond. But for those of you that have seen that show, you know that she her character evolves past just being an apprentice to Dooku and becomes a bounty hunter and kind of goes into kind of explore her own life. And I just think she has such a rich backstory. And people clown on early seasons of the Clone Wars. Again, watch them again. They're not as bad as you remembered the first time. It's all about Star Wars. It's all about expectations. That includes the Clone Wars series, I believe. When people say, "Oh, these seasons are too long," and it's taking, their stories jumping all over the place, but you really get to dig into these characters and spend a lot of time with them. And so, like, watching Asajj Ventress, her journey from dark side apprentice through bounty hunter, like, it's such an incredible kind of thing to watch happen. And that's the same with other, like Ahsoka or other characters too, because you get to spend so much time with them. And not every episode of that show is great or a masterpiece or whatever, but you really do have like a long ride and a long journey, and you witness the character's journey over time, which is really special. So I personally, when I was thinking of it, I was like, I don't care that she doesn't stay a Sith apprentice. I don't think that disqualifies her from having her be on my list of dark side Force users, because when she is a Sith apprentice and she's wielding those double red blades, She's so goddamn cool and scary and threatening and smart and cunning and such a powerful adversary for Obi-Wan and the Jedi.
I was going to say
Anakin,
the banter between her and Obi-Wan is just it's amazing.
It is
but
great.
Like in general, she embodies a lot of what I love about the Clone Wars and the character growth you can show through a show like that, and something that is long lasting. Very similar to what we saw with the 3 seasons of the Bad Batch, which she does show up again in with a killer haircut. But I guess my reasoning for keeping her on the dark was, even when she went bounty hunter, it's not like she was still in that gray Jedi at best situation. You know what I mean? Like it's not like she was ever a light side user.
Yeah, I would say her appearance in the Bad Batch is the closest that she's ever been to like being a good guy, really, in any way. She goes from being straight up villain to like someone who's just in it for themselves. And we see that all the time in Star Wars. Like some of my favorite characters are characters that are just like, I'm on whatever side that is going to help me survive. Like Mandalorian or whatever, Han Solo even. And so she becomes kind of that character, which again, she's not a straight up hero. She doesn't become a Jedi. You know, she doesn't. She's in it for herself.
It's not like some Force users that have literally just gone from Jedi to Sith to Jedi to Sith to, you know what I mean? Like someone like a Darth Revan from the game you guys haven't played. Matt, you played Knights of the Old Republic, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just Mike who hasn't caught up on this. So we're waiting for that reboot still.
I know. Praying for it every day. Matt, I know you are not as I don't know if you've watched as many Clone Wars episodes as Steve and I have, but have you experienced this character? Obviously not enough to get her on your list, but like, do you have any thoughts about
not enough to put her on my list. One thing I will say about the Clone Wars, and I was just thinking, which I know isn't the topic we're talking about, but it's Star Wars and we've got 2 hours. It is the Clone Wars series did so much for this saga and the overall arc of so many characters and the Star Wars story. I mean, from introducing characters to showing a different type of character in Anakin Skywalker than we saw on the big screen. It's really fascinating what this show did for the series. I definitely agree. I like the banter between her and Obi-Wan. I liked that she left the Sith, but wasn't she was on her own path, she reminds me very much of Ahsoka, in the opposite way.
Like a dark mirror of her, kind of. I see that. For sure.
That's
a good point.
Definitely.
I also, I feel like she's like, because I first saw her in the Tartakovsky Clone Wars series, which I loved and is still available on Disney Plus. And I think she's in only like 1 episode of that or 2 episodes. Like, she's not in many episodes. And I mean, spoiler alert, Anakin kills her in the original series, which I loved. And I was kind of sad that didn't happen in the rebooted Clone Wars or the newer Clone Wars series.
But at the same time, Filoni realized that, like, how cool of a character she was, and was like, we're not going to kill her this time.
What else can we get out of this character? Yeah, for sure. But also originally, because she's only in like 1 or 2 episodes of that series, and then she dies. It was, for me, it was kind of a classic Star Wars thing. It was just like, oh, I think I love this character because they look cool, and that's it. Like, I feel like Star Wars is a series where you can get a lot of mileage out of just things looking cool, and you can form deep emotional connections to designs, character designs, or
see
ship designs.
Fett
Just like
become
I
a
just love
Boba.
that. I don't know anything about it, but I just love it. Like all the people that loved Boba Fett for a million years and demanded more Boba Fett content, despite him being on screen for 10 seconds. I was like, he just looks cool. He just looks cool.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you
Yeah.
care about, and that's fine. That's an acceptable reason to love something when it comes to Star Wars, I think.
So
All
yeah,
right.
we're at
Saj
the
Ventress.
she was your 4 as well, Mike, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're moving on to
Numero
Matt.
tres.
Your number 3.
My number 3 is I don't know if he'll even be on your guys' list, to be honest with you, but I think he is a extremely important figure in the prequel era, and I think his actions had a ripple effect. But I'm gonna go with Dark Tyrannus, aka Count Dooku.
Okay.
Count Dooku at number 3. All right. Good choice, Matt.
He is not on my list, though he is down at 8 in the honorable mentions.
He is not on my list either. So let's talk about Count Dooku. Matt, I mean, you just kind of talked about him a little bit. Do you have anything more to say about him?
Yeah. I think, you know, if you haven't seen Tales of the Jedi, it is so worth watching because I believe it further explains his impact on you know, he was he helped Palpatine invoke this plan.
Yeah.
He was the one
set it in motion.
He set it in motion. He created the Separatists. He you know, this is a guy. This is a dark side user that took Anakin Skywalker's arm. He defeated Anakin and Obi-Wan at the same time. He was able to go toe to toe. Now he also did lose to them as well.
I was gonna say Anakin ultimately won that with the head thing.
Yeah.
One hand versus one head.
Yeah. Heads were gonna roll. But he also went toe to toe with Yoda. And I mean, when you talk about Force users, he is the Padawan of Yoda, and his ability, I think, often goes underappreciated.
I think ultimately, I mean, that line from Yoda to Tyrannus to Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan to Anakin to Ahsoka, is one of the, like, I don't know, that is the preeminent. What's that?
To Sabine, right?
Okay, sure.
Just finishing the line. That's all.
Technicalities here, but yeah, that is one of those. Well, I mean, I guess Kanan technically, and Ezra would be part of that.
Well, why? Who taught Kanan?
Ahsoka ended up providing them training in
I guess
Rebels.
that's true. I guess that's true. I don't.
Somewhere there has to be a cool, almost like family
tree. Yeah.
Yeah. Who trained?
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Someone get on that. I would love to.
But
yeah.
But we talk about how this animation has impacted things. I mentioned I had Dooku at 8. He would not have been remotely close to my list were it not for Tales of the Jedi. And like that episode just changed things.
Yeah. I feel like Matt, when you said something about how he was underappreciated, under-recognized for his power and his role, I completely agree with that, and I see why, because they try to make him deeper character in Attack of the Clones, but that movie has a lot of flaws in it.
There's plenty of other issues besides that.
In my opinion, there's plenty of other issues, and they're trying to do a lot in that movie, so they don't really get to dive into him in that film as much. Although he does have a couple great scenes. I really like the scene where he has Obi-Wan captured. He pretty much tells Obi-Wan exactly what is happening. Obi-Wan just doesn't believe him. And then, the fight where with Yoda and Anakin and Obi-Wan later on is great. But basically in that movie and also in the Clone Wars series, we really don't get to see much more of him than other than just like, he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy because he's the bad guy and he's the villain. And that's it. We don't really get any much depth out of him. There's a couple cool Clone Wars episodes where, we see him do a little bit more, but I agree with both of you. Tales of the Jedi was the first series that really kind of put him in, or shown him in the light that he deserves to be shown in. Like he's doing, but it shows him becoming disillusioned with the Jedi and going on to, become involved with Darth Sidious and start putting these plans in motion, and to the point where he kills Yaddle, another Jedi Master, in order to protect what he's doing. So like those are like shorts. There's like 3 short animation shorts that give him more backstory and more interesting plot lines than a whole movie and 7 seasons of an animated show. So I agree with you that without Tales of the Jedi, he wasn't on my top 5, but he would definitely be in my top 10, but I wouldn't consider him remotely interesting, really, if it wasn't for Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because even like the stuff that we know about, he was Yoda's, he used to train under Yoda and he used to be a Jedi. Like, I don't even know if they even specify that in Attack of the Clones outright. And I think
they mention it like offhand at the beginning of the fight.
If they do, it's not like a big plot point or anything. Like that should have been something that's like deeply expressed to the audience, so the audience is like, ooh, this guy's interesting. And they don't mention it or they gloss over it in something that doesn't really have much impact. So therefore that character doesn't really have much impact in that movie as much as they want him to have. But anyway,
well,
Count Dooku.
I know my number 3 is not going to be on either of your lists and is almost a technicality.
Great. Okay.
But he is a canon character. It is the originator of the Sith Rule of 2, Darth Bane.
Oh, yep.
So
I know that name, but I don't know much about him at all. And yes, he is not on my list.
Mentioned in Clone Wars, mentioned in a couple of, I believe, Rise of Skywalker, for whatever that's worth.
Is he mentioned in Rise of Skywalker?
I think so.
Oh, interesting. I believe you.
I know he's mentioned at least a couple of times. But
let's
he
all
is
pause
officially
this podcast, go watch Rise of Skywalker,
Nope.
and we'll come back.
You just lost me at that. That is once a year I get to do that. Some year it'll be fine. This is not that year.
Yeah.
Matt, I'd assume you do not have Darth Bane.
I do not.
Okay. So
let's hear about him, Steve.
Bane, to me, I'm drawing a lot from the EU end of things in that 3 of the best novels that were ever written in the EU were the story of Bane, how he came to be, how he rose in the Sith. He is from the ancient era when it was, there were planets of Sith and like the Sith Wars. After the Jedi Sith War, he effectively nuked all of the Sith, the Jedi and the Sith, and formed this rule of 2 of a master and apprentice. That lasted all the way through until Sidious. And until he died for the second time. But a lot of why I have him as high as I do is just the characterization of him in these novels, and how well established it was of him orchestrating the downfall of the old Sith and the rise of this new order. And it just, it hit with me. So
sure.
No real reason outside of that. but very well written in the EU. Brought in on a technicality because he is officially canon now. Now he did have that showdown with Yoda in the season 6 of the Clone Wars.
Wait, really?
He was the
when
dude...
Yoda's in that weird trippy place.
Yeah, he was the dude in the weird armor.
Okay,
that is Darth
that's
Bane.
Cool.
Yep.
I haven't rewatched that stuff, but I remember that plot line.
Yep.
At least vaguely.
It was like the specter of this dude in the weird armor, and that was him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to him much, but even just kind of what you described shows a huge impact on like the history of the both religions.
Yeah,
both
definitely.
Force religions. So yeah, and seemingly incredibly powerful, and had a long-lasting effect on the Sith in general. So
absolutely
no problem for me. Then being your number 3, my number 3 has been mentioned, I believe, at least once. I'm already losing track. My number 3 dark side Force user is Darth Maul.
We're not talking about him yet.
Not talking about him yet. I didn't think we would be.
Nope.
Still not talking Darth Maul. All right, Matt, we're on to number 2. 2 for dark side Force users. Matt, Beseda, let's hit it.
My number 2 is the centerpiece of Star Wars. In many ways. I don't know how to describe him better than that, but my number 2 is Darth Vader.
Whoa. Wow. Not talking about him yet.
Okay. He is also my number 2.
Oh. Not talking about
who's number 2, the more interesting game we played again.
My number 2, someone I'm pretty sure we will be talking about right now, unless I'm wildly overestimating or underestimating Steve's opinion of this character. My number 2 dark side Force user, Kylo Ren.
No, remember I had him at 5.
Oh, you did have him at 5.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. No, I'm losing track. So, okay. So we're talking Kylo Ren.
There you go. So Matt and I both had Kylo at 5.
Yep.
You had him at
He's
2.
my 2.
So we all three of us acknowledge the redness of Kylo. I'm gonna not do that.
Yeah. I mean, you had him higher than the Emperor, Steve. So
yeah,
that's,
I just don't like Palpatine. I really just like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk Palpatine momentarily. I believe. I love Kylo Ren. I know there's people out there that don't. I don't understand
to him.
You came around to him?
After Force Awakens, I thought he was a whiny whatever that I did not want to deal with, and then I thought more about it and saw it a couple of times and was like, yeah, no, I see why he is doing what he's doing.
He's intentionally written that way.
Right. Like, and you see that.
It's not that the character's coming off like that way. Like, he's written to be a petulant man-child who is like mad with power. Like, he has tasted power and he doesn't have the maturity to handle it.
Right.
Well,
like, the reason I didn't like him is because I was supposed to not like him.
Yes.
Like, he was written in that way. And it took me at least 2 viewings to realize that. And I'm like, huh. Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting. He's sort of the opposite, not the opposite, the same, but also the opposite of Anakin in Attack of the Clones. You know, Anakin's written in a way sort of annoying, sort of a baby.
Hi, have you met Luke?
He gets sure.
I want to go to Tashi Station.
It's all the same bloodline. We're talking,
right. Yeah,
so
it's true.
Passed down.
Genetics.
Is the same bloodline. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that characterization, one, like, I get what you're saying, Matt, where it's not dissimilar to Anakin, but I think this specific characterization is one that we hadn't really seen in Star Wars before. I think it also speaks to things like the dangers of ego and the dangers of toxic masculinity. When those two things combine and spin out of control, I think that he is a character that is, for the most part, written very well to show, that he is in pain, not physical, but like he is struggling on the inside, and not just struggling with his pull to the light side, which they make clear in Force Awakens, but he is just like struggling with the betrayal he feels from Luke, just anger at feeling rejected by his parents, feeling rejected by everything. Like his inner conflict and inner pain and suffering, self-loathing, whatever you want to call it, like I feel like is so well depicted, more so than Anakin even. I think Anakin we see Anakin experience some traumatic experiences, death of his mother, rage, murdering tons of Tusken Raiders, like we see that. But then also then we go to Clone Wars and he's depicted as pretty fine, pretty happy. It's not like he's not like harboring necessarily a dark secret, which is part of my problem of his,
but he
with
does
his characterization and his quick fall to the dark side. He does escalate through the Clone Wars.
Again, it's one of those where, were it not for the Clone Wars,
yes,
I'm gonna go crazy here. Were it not for the Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker as a character probably would be nowhere near my light side list anywhere.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Clone Wars, and even then, it doesn't really make sense because we've already seen him straight up massacre a bunch of Tusken Raiders, and
the women and the children.
And the children too.
Well,
we're supposed to think he's an okay guy. Like one Clone Wars is like, oh yeah, no, he's fun, Anakin, and he's great. It's just like, wait, he
went from that to Snips, and it's
now
like,
you want me to like him? Yeah,
okay.
It's strange. It's strange,
but it works.
I feel like
it weirdly worked.
It does work, but I feel like with everything we got from Kylo Ren, we really understand his journey and what he's kind of dealing with and why he is acting like this. At least I do. And I also think Adam Driver is such an incredible actor. And I know Hayden Christensen is a good actor, and he was working with a director that doesn't really know how to work with actors very well when he made those movies. And he's definitely redeemed himself in things like Ahsoka. But Adam Driver can act circles around many, many other people in the Star Wars franchise, I think. And so him being behind all that great characterization, I think, just makes the character really soar for me personally.
Yeah, you're talking about an Oscar-nominated actor. I think storyline-wise, it's interesting how dangerous it could be training a Jedi, and Yoda says to Luke, Yoda warns Luke about how they're going to try to turn him. They're going to try to turn you. They're going to try to turn you to the dark side. It happens with Kylo Ren. He is turned because he's partially trained, and he's confused, and he's upset, and he
feels betrayed,
I mean,
it's one of the reasons why I think Yoda always Yoda goes back. He is too old. He said with Anakin, he said that with Luke. They have very distinct reasons and criteria for training.
And
in both cases, they made an exception. And Anakin, because of his, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, midichlorian count. In Kylo Ren's Ben Solo's case, he was Luke's nephew. Luke is obviously going to train his nephew. In both cases there was a little bit of I don't want to say nepotism, but
it could be
favoritism. No, I get it, and it's funny because in the EU, actually, Kip Duran, one of Luke's apprentices at the academy, he sets up actually it was at the Masashi Temple on Yavin 4, takes an Imperial super weapon and blows up Kurita, which is where the Stormtrooper Academy is.
Whoa.
And then gets redeemed
North
and
or
becomes a
south?
Jedi Master. So, like,
Wow.
these beats are out there.
Yeah.
It's nothing new to Star Wars.
Right.
But yeah, the way Ren's storyline plays out, it definitely took what I thought going into after watching Force Awakens was pretty cookie cutter and turned it into, okay, this is more of a development story than I expected. And I really did not want to like Kylo Ren after Force Awakens. I also didn't realize what Adam Driver was capable of after that or before that, because I had only seen him in whenever I caught a random episode of Girls that my wife was watching, and I was like, okay, it's that dude.
Right. See, I don't think I don't think I had seen him in anything before I saw him in Force Awakens, which I think I mean, that happens a lot in Star Wars. I think it benefits me in a lot of ways, but I love it in Star Wars when I don't know an actor before I see them in Star Wars, because then they're just that character. I don't have it was like, oh, it's Tom Hanks playing a Jedi. You know what I mean? So it's like, I remember him from all those Tom Hanks movies. It's like, oh, I believe this guy is Kylo Ren because I've never seen him in anything else. So he's just Kylo Ren. And so I don't have to bring any other expectations of what the actor is capable of or what they're going to do or how they're going to play a character. It's just like, that's just what they are.
Right. Sam Jackson as Mace Windu is like, do we get Julius? Or, I mean, I guess it's also Sam Jackson, so he's going to play Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
So there's that. But
he's also the only one I can think of. Because I'm, I was 16 when Phantom Menace came out, so I wasn't very familiar with Liam Neeson. I had seen Ewan McGregor in an episode of ER.
Yeah.
And I had seen Natalie Portman in my dreams. But sorry, I had to. There weren't many characters. And the same with the sequel trilogy. I hadn't seen Oscar Isaac or Daisy Ridley or John Boyega. Even Dominic, who plays Hux.
Monaghan?
Who's a very good actor.
Is it?
No, Dominic Monaghan is the Mary the Hobbit, who's in and Charlie, Star Wars Minute refers to him as the Not Penny's Boat Hobbit. He's in The Rise of Skywalker. You're thinking of Donald Gleason.
Donald Gleason.
Donald Gleason. Donald Gleason. Jackie's son. And
Brendan's son. Which, if you haven't watched,
it's gonna be interesting
Matt, if you haven't watched Banshees of Inisherin, go watch that.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Okay.
Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson do amazing things.
It's gonna be interesting when Jude Law shows up in that skeleton crew and to see if he can rise above the fact that he's Jude Law.
Yeah,
like that.
Very much.
Although I feel like Jude Law has been out of the spotlight for long enough. Like, when's the last time you saw a movie that Jude Law was like featured in?
It was Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That was the only thing with Ahsoka that was Rosario Dawson. I'm a big fan of Rent, and saw her in Rent, and I was expecting this. Anyway,
Ahsoka didn't start singing.
Didn't start singing. She. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. I knew Rosario Dawson from a few things, but also she's got a weird thing on her head and her face is orange and stuff. So like that kind of helps. But also she was playing it. She had the uphill battle of fighting against the animated version of that character and kind of like defining her own version of it. So like that was kind of a double thing. But I think we've digressed enough.
To get back to
enough time. I think it's time we get to our number one dark side Force users.
Which, if my brain is working, I believe all three of us have distinctly different ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So Matt, who's your number one dark side force user? I think I know, but you said go for it.
Yeah. My number one is the orchestrator, the manipulator, the one who set everything in motion and did his little godfather is Emperor Palpatine.
Sure.
Good old Chief.
Yeah. All right.
Which is very, very interesting because Steve didn't have him on his list.
I had him at 10.
Mike rated him at 5. You had him at 10. 10, 5,
Even though we
1.
made top 5 lists.
Yeah, I had him at 10.
Yeah.
10, 5, and 1. That's a very so I guess we've
Emperor.
should talk about him.
Yeah.
Fire away.
Matt, do you have more to say about him? Yeah, you go ahead. He's your number one.
Yeah. I think he is part of the centerpiece of the entire saga. I'm gonna forget.
No, don't forget it.
Skywalker.
Don't forget it. He's in it. Don't forget it.
That's why he's at 10.
Okay.
I'm not going to bullshit you.
I mean, this guy single-handedly, with his powers and his
can't say single-handedly. He had a lot of help. He hired a lot
but he
of people.
puppet mastered a lot of it.
You're right. He hired a lot of help, but didn't tell anybody what he was doing. So yeah,
right.
You're half right. Yeah,
I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant. And then, it was like the fall of the Roman Empire, but happened like that.
Yeah.
When it happened, Rome took several hundred years, but he pulling the strings on Vader too, and it's just he's a very interesting character. And I recently rewatched Obi-Wan, which I thoroughly enjoy. I love that show. And what I liked about that show was they showed Palpatine in that era. Because you don't see him. You see him in Bad Batch, and then you don't see him physically till Return of the Jedi, which is a pretty long stretch. I think that there's no one that could play him besides Ian McDiarmid. I think he God is so good. Now, episode 9, I'm not gonna blame that on the character Palpatine.
Yeah.
I think
he's doing what Ian McDiarmid is doing what he's asked to do.
Oh yeah,
Ian
McDiarmid was fine.
Yeah, Ian McDiarmid. I think Ian McDiarmid is a big reason why he's on my list at all. I think my love for the Emperor comes almost exclusively from Return of the Jedi. And I agree with what you said, Matt, how like he's like the puppet master and all that stuff. Like that is interesting, intriguing stuff, cool, great. Return of the Jedi was the first time I saw the Emperor, because when I was a kid, when I first saw Empire Strikes Back, he was not in it. So I didn't see him until Return of the Jedi, and he's terrifying in that movie. Like
absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, like I was scared of Darth Vader when I was a kid, but in a different way, because Vader's got this like you don't see his face, right? He's like a mystery.
Right.
Where Emperor is just this like decrepit old looking guy, and
he's the crypt keeper
he's
under
not
a hood.
he's not hiding his face. He's like
talks like this.
Yeah, he talks super creepy. Yeah. He moves super creepy. He's like a presence unlike anything I had seen in the first 2 Star Wars movies at that time. So I was like, whoa, what is this? This is like a wizard, like a magic guy, And like, yeah, Jedi are kind of wizards too, but he looks just so radically different and scary. And then when lightning shoots out of his fingers, I'm just like, oh my God, this is horrifying. I was like terrified when I was a little kid. So he's like left this huge impression on me as just like the pinnacle of evil. And Ian McDiarmid, great as that character. He's probably the best actor in the prequel trilogy, I want to say, I think, all across the board, because he's great in all three of those movies, and not everyone else is great in those movies.
Ewan McGregor is probably your only other close to it.
Because like, McGregor's in all three also. Yeah, right. I would say Liam Neeson. Well,
he exists. I mean, Ewan McGregor existed in episode 1.
Yeah, but he just doesn't do anything and doesn't do anything and doesn't do anything until he kills Darth Maul.
Right.
At the end. Yeah. So yeah, I think Ian McDiarmid is maybe the best actor in that trilogy.
Yeah.
However, I feel like my feelings about those movies.
Christopher Lee does bring it as Dooku.
You're right. Yeah. Oh, a lot of people do, but I feel that those movies are flawed. My feelings about those movies kind of dampen my love for the Emperor in those movies, I guess, because like I've said this about my personal opinion about the prequels, is that it's a good story that's not told very well. It's a good story told badly, is how I said it before.
And that's proven by Clone Wars.
I agree. I think that the whole like they play off the reveal that he's the Sith Lord in Revenge of the Sith. They kind of play that off as supposed to like a big twist, and it's like, well, he's been played by the same actor for the last 3 movies. Like, is anybody fooled by this?
But I still remember in '99 when the Phantom Menace came out, how many people did not put Senator Palpatine and Emperor Palpatine together?
Yeah.
And I know.
But
I know it worked. I guess it worked on some people, because there's people that love those movies way more than I do. But like, I guess I was old enough to be like, even when I saw Phantom Menace, and they show at the end of Phantom Menace, they're like, who did we kill, the Master or the Apprentice? And there's like this sinister close up on like Palpatine's face. I'm like, oh, he's the bad guy.
It's the same like, guy that was the
tell
Emperor.
you, they like tell you at the end of Phantom Menace, and so I'm like, okay, well then I know more than all of the Jedi, and I know more characters that now look stupid because I'm in the audience and I know it's so obvious to me. So like, I think like the weaknesses of the prequels of surrounding that character made him a little lower on my list for me personally. But like he did leave such an impression on me in Return of the Jedi that it was like he had to be on the list for sure. And Rise of Skywalker, like, again, like, I think that's the biggest mistake that movie made, was bringing him back, but it still is fun to watch. It's always fun to watch Ian McDiarmid play the Emperor, like, no matter what. So like, even though when I'm watching that movie, I'm like, this is stupid, but it's cool to see him as the Emperor. But not cool enough to make me think it was a good idea, but still, like, they're giving this to me, I'm gonna make lemonade out of lemons.
I mean, that basically dropped him off my list. Like, it probably dropped him from 5 to 10 for me.
The Rise of Skywalker specifically? Yeah.
Because, like, like, when I was doing it, I guess it wasn't holistic, because if I'd have looked at it of Ian McDiarmid and what he's done and, like, how he portrayed the character, it probably would have been higher. But, like, I just couldn't get over the bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, too.
One other...
And this is someone who enjoyed this storyline. Star Wars Dark Empire, which was literally Palpatine being cloned in the EU.
One thing I want to bring up, he was successfully able to turn the quote-unquote most powerful Jedi ever. The Chosen... Whoa.
What?
What was that? Can anyone else see that?
You're on your Mac, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am on my Mac.
We just saw a bunch of balloons.
Go,
like weird. Digital balloons go past.
That was very weird.
Out of nowhere.
The most non-Palpatine thing, balloon.
Yay!
All right.
He turns Anakin Skywalker. Yeah, but we should keep moving. Yeah.
So my number one, as you can attest by the fact that by process of elimination, if you're listening,
Yep.
Maul.
Yeah.
Not necessarily
Darth
Darth Maul.
Maul.
Because by the end, he was just Maul.
He's just Maul.
Or Old Master, or whatever you'd like to call him. But that character, holy hell. Like, to go from, okay, Ray Park is really cool and doing twirly shit, and he got cut in half, and he fell down a garbage chute, to me being able to put him as number 1 on my favorite dark side list.
Yeah.
Like, that's a journey. And through Clone Wars and Rebels, and technically Solo, there was so much growth in this character and so much change. And it's weird to have his arc end like it did, almost made it even better. Like that tragic ending of him in the desert with Obi-Wan.
Matt, have you seen Rebels?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And you're right. It's absolutely tragic, and
it's incredible.
It's a beautifully well done scene. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
But he, like, Maul was everything. He was a leader of the Mandalorians. He was a fallen Sith apprentice. He and his brother tried to take on the Empire. Like, it was just a weird, you almost couldn't write it outside of tying it into all these different threads, and it worked so well.
Yeah.
Like, even as a foil to Inquisitors, and like working with Ezra and Kanan, but like there were arcs in Rebels, there were arcs in Clone Wars where you're just like, I feel bad for this guy. Oh, I love this guy. Oh, he's pure evil. Oh, okay. Like, this character is just everywhere.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it was Dave Filoni who I heard. Excellent. Too. That's a great comic cover. I'm pretty sure it was Dave Filoni that I heard describe Darth Maul as Sisyphus, the Greek tragic character who's sentenced to forever be pushing a rock up a hill only to have it roll back down. Which is a great way to look at that character. I think, like, he's lots of rises and lots of falls. And I agree with what you said initially, Steve, when Matt brought him up, is that if it was not for animation, he would not even come close to being in the top 5, because that's another thing that I felt a lot of people did when Phantom Menace came out. Like, but Darth Maul was all over the marketing. He was huge in the trailer. He was like he was on everything. He was a super cool looking character. Looks terrifying.
Got like 12 minutes of screen time and like two lines.
Dies. 2 lines, dies.
Yep.
Insane. What? I think, like, the idea to bring him back is such a wild idea, which on paper, or you first hear it, you're like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And, it kind of doesn't. He was just so mad that he didn't die, basically, is what they say. Like, he was so mad, he plunged himself into the Force, or like used the dark side to like hold himself together.
See my number 3. Darth Bane had a whole thing where he was dying and adhered armor to him. Yeah, whatever.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, weirder things have happened in Star Wars.
Dark side does some weird stuff.
But it's like we said with Ventress, like, they realized what they could get out of that character instead of killing them off. And I kind of wish that maybe they had done that in the movie, not killed him off, or made it a little more up in the air. But without his story arc in Clone Wars, and for me, Rebels specifically, I think is an incredible arc.
I feel like Clone Wars was good at laying a base for what happened in Rebels. Like, if we didn't see that rise and fall in Clone Wars, it wouldn't have made his interactions with everybody, including the Inquisitors and like ultimately Vader showing up, etc. Wouldn't have made that as much of a payoff.
Yeah.
So I think it was like this weird ass whole package of obscurity to what he became, and it worked so well.
Yeah, I agree. Is it my turn for my number one?
Speaking of rises and falls, Mike, go ahead.
Vader, baby. Not reinventing the wheel here. Darth Vader.
The Dark Lord of the
one.
Sith himself.
Dark Lord of the Sith. He's like the first villain I remember in my life ever being scared of. I feel like watching other stuff like, I don't know, Super Friends cartoons or something. It's like, oh, the Joker or Lex Luthor. But it's just like inherently I know that Superman is going to win, right? I just know. And, you know, I'm not scared of them the way that these cartoons are depicting them. You know, you see him step through that door on the Tantive 5 or what was it?
4.
Tantive 4? 4, yeah. I get confused because there's a V at the end, and I always think about the V as being a 5, so it always takes me a second. You see him step through that door after those stormtroopers, and you're like, you know, the bright white hallway, bright white stormtroopers, rebel leaders with the bright white helmet. Everything's so bright. And then this like just object of sheer darkness comes in, and you know, I mentioned earlier the presence that the Emperor had in Return of the Jedi. It's like for 10 times that for me in Vader in A New Hope. And he just has such a huge presence in those movies, such a huge presence that he, as a character, as a design, as a look, like he is just evident in all Star Wars media. You think Star Wars, you think of Darth Vader, and people who have never seen these movies, you know, he's bled into the culture to the point where people who've never seen these movies might be shocked that he's only in 3 of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as that character, really. Despite, you know, besides 2 minutes at the end of Revenge of the Sith or whatever, but you know, because he's such a strong design, he's such a strong character. We all love him. Everybody loves Darth Vader. He's just the best. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. And there's so much, and especially in the original trilogy, part of the reason I loved him, there's just so much mystery around him.
Right.
Like, you don't know what he looks like under that suit. You don't really know how he got that way. Oh my God, he's Luke's dad. What the hell? Like, there's so much that you don't know about him.
It was, I used to rewind it and watch it, that because it was so intriguing, that part in Empire Strikes Back where they're putting the helmet on,
yeah,
and you can see the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, just so interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
When he's in his hyperbaric chamber there.
Yeah, so cool.
So we did actually have, just digressing to the people's vote. We did have one write-in. I had to change it to just Darth Vader for the tally purposes, but it was specifically Rogue One Darth Vader because
okay.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Rogue One and Obi-Wan, Matt, the Obi-Wan show. Those are the 2 times that we get to see Vader be terrifying, really.
Yeah. I mean, we see it in, like you said, the boarding scene on the Tantive 4, but beyond that, you're just like intimidated by James Earl Jones's voice and this like this character that is encased in a machine.
Yeah, you're intimidated by his presence and the fact that he seems to have no problem killing anybody, people that work for him or whatever.
Younglings.
But you know, you see him in a couple lightsaber duels, but as far as knowing why he's feared across the galaxy, we don't really get that level of ruthlessness until we see Rogue One and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is something I feel like, contrary to that, we do get that level of ruthlessness pretty quickly out of Kylo Ren, which like immediately is like, oh, this guy can mess you up if you cross him. Yeah. And you know, you do get that in Vader, but in a different way. You don't really get like the violence from Vader that you expect until we see Rogue One and Obi-Wan.
One of the scenes that really stuck out to me watching the Kenobi series this time through was the I don't know if I'd call it a duel, his altercation with the third sister.
So amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. He's just toying with her.
Yeah.
You know, he
it's
takes
a
her
cat
saber,
batting a mouse
splits it in
around.
half. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
He
mean,
he doesn't even use his lightsaber, right?
Nope.
He's just like
Right.
dodging hers and then takes one of hers and uses her.
takes one, snaps it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he's not even like, it's like he's not, he doesn't respect her enough to draw his lightsaber to fight her. You know what I mean? Like he's like disrespecting
incredible.
her.
And that
it's incredible. Yeah.
So stuff like that, you also, for anyone, you know, ultimately we do also delve into comics end of things. The Kieran Gillen and oh god, who did the other run on Vader?
Charles Soule.
Yep, the Soule and Vader, or Soule and Gillen runs on Vader both like have him with that hubris, and like you see the Soule run, you see him finding himself, and the Gillen run, you see him like at peak, like going ham and just like
and that's what you need. Like you said, hubris, like that's what you need, because like that's what they painted Anakin with in the prequels. But you don't really get that hubris from him in the original trilogy, because he's like this more stoic, like, you know, he's
right,
like
he's kind of past
secondary.
that.
And he's secondary to Tarkin in A New Hope, and he's not on his own until Empire. But even then, he's not like, you know,
right, he's Tarkin's.
He's more reserved. He's seemingly more reserved.
Yeah.
But what you want is, you know, and then that's why it's just like, well, I don't understand this characterization of Anakin in the prequels, because he doesn't feel like the same character that's going to put that suit on, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, it's cool that they found a way to connect that a little bit more. So,
so that's
any other thoughts about Vader? Yeah. Okay. You want to jump to what the audience said?
Yeah. So that's our top fives.
Listeners think.
We did get a bunch of responses. The final tally for Dark Side Force user from our audience, we had votes for, it's weird, we had 4 people with 1 vote, and everybody else went Vader and Maul.
Wow. Okay.
So we had a vote for Darth Sidious, a vote for Kylo Ren, a vote for Jorah Sabaoth from the original Thrawn trilogy, which is a EU dig.
Disqualified.
Well, there's also a vote for Naga Sadow from, you remember when we were talking when Tales of the Jedi was announced, there was an old comic Tales of the Jedi?
Yes.
Like this?
Okay.
That is Naga Sadow.
Okay.
And he was a badass Force user. Apparently one of our listeners wrote that in. They also had a honorable mention of Asajj Ventress. So beyond that, it came down to Vader and Maul.
Wow. So not really much of a spread.
Nope.
Who came out on top?
Darth Vader edged Maul by 3 votes.
Wow.
So
close call.
Yeah. Came right down to the wire. But yeah.
Nice.
Overall, that was the gist of the people and what their thoughts were.
Nice.
We did have a write-in for like we were talking about, mildly hilarious, because Dooku apparently autocorrects to Doolittle, but with the recent Tales of the Jedi, Count Doolittle storyline is pretty compelling, particularly what would have happened if Qui-Gon had not been killed. So
yeah. That's cool. We also mentioned if we had any honorable mentions, we should fire them off now. I feel like the only honorable mention dark side wise that I would have would be Count Dooku. I think he'd be close. He'd probably be my number 6 if I made a list longer than 5.
Fair enough.
That's what I'd say. Steve, you have plenty of honorable mentions, I believe.
Yeah, most of them are EU. So I kept all the EU out of my top 5.
Well, you can just rattle them off. We don't have to discuss them. We won't be able to discuss them really. But if you want,
I could just talk to myself about them.
Yeah. No, you can just rattle them off, so you at least feel like you didn't waste your time making a list of honorable mentions. All
right. Exar Kun, Darth Nihilus, Darth Tyrannus, Darth Caedus, Palpatine, Darth Krayt, Mother Telzin, Jorah Sabaoth, Naga Sadow, and Darth Talon.
I knew Mother Talzin.
And Palpatine. And Dooku.
And Palpatine and Dooku and Trinity. Yeah. Nice.
Is she the one that had 12 kids that lived in a shoe?
Yep.
Yes.
That's her.
100%.
Yeah.
Shel Silverstein wrote about her. It was fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. She used so much force she didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
All right. You've got your next February song for next year.
That's right.
All right. Before we go to the light, I posed this to Matt before the pod, and he.
Oh, this was the thing you said. Stop talking about it, and you'll.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on neutral Force users? Ones that have either been both Jedi and Sith, or are truly neutral.
Well, I mean, currently, that would be Ventress, right? She'd be like a neutral Force user,
right? And like Matt brought up Anakin/Vader, but in my brain, the two of them are too distinctly different to.
Yeah.
Like
they're two different.
I feel like the story, whether it's movies or Clone Wars or whatever, I feel like it really goes out of its way to make sure they are treated as Anakin Skywalker as one being and Darth Vader as another being.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to the original trilogy, ceased being Anakin Skywalker and became Darth Vader. So
I mean, that's your opinion from a certain point of view, Mike.
Right. Well, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
From a certain point of view, Luke, you will find that
I'm trying to think of. I'm having trouble thinking of another Force user that isn't specifically a Jedi or a Sith that isn't on my.
I mean, there is
list.
the one in the middle, the Bendu.
Oh, sure. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a great reference. That's a great reference.
My personal I mentioned Revan earlier, but Quinlan Voss, for anyone who has never been down the rabbit hole, another reason why Ventress is as high on the list as it is, Dark Disciple was a novel that included Quinlan Voss and his dance with the dark side and back and whatnot, but what's that?
Was he romantically linked to Asajj Ventress at one point? Quinlan Voss? Yeah, that's what I thought.
And there was an arc in Clone Wars that included him as well.
Yeah.
He's got that weird like bar across his face thing.
Yep. I think he's in Phantom Menace for about 5 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also had Kyle Katarn and Cade Skywalker on the list.
Oh, all right.
So Cade Skywalker, as well as
he's like a future person.
Yeah. On my dark side list, Darth Krayt and Darth Talon were both. They're all from the Legacy comic line back in the day on Dark Horse.
All right. Cool.
I'm gonna have to go with Ben Quadranero.
Ben Quadraneros. I love that guy.
Best pod racer around.
Best pod racer who doesn't
go anywhere.
Yeah.
He's got a square head, but it's like tilted, so it's like diamond head.
Yep.
There you go.
Diamond head, Hawaii. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so I think it's time to move to the light.
Yeah, I was trying to find a segue from Diamond Head to the light. I had nothing. No. Hey, Matt.
Light side Force users, starting at number 5. Let's do this. Matt Beseda, hit me.
Can I start with a honorable? Actually, no, never mind. My number 5 is a very powerful Jedi, a very, I would say, conservative Jedi, but also had an edge to him, a little rebellious. So complete opposites of what I just said.
Yeah, right.
But I think it will make sense when I say the name, and I'm going to go with Qui-Gon Jinn.
I know that's what you're going to say. Yeah.
I do not have him on my list.
I also don't have him on my list, so let's go. Let's dig into Qui-Gon. Yeah, Matt, you're shocked. Prequel fans everywhere feeling disrespected. Sorry.
I guess I just feel that the Qui-Gon, I don't know, when I think of a classic Jedi and
It's the hair.
You know, it's the hair, but it's also, God, he was so good at you know, he he was a negotiator. He was
Yeah, he
I
had a
don't
way
know.
with people, but he also, being a practitioner of the living force and like that whole concept. Like I get where you're coming from. How he was different. He was an outlier, but he was still like that classic Jedi feel to him.
Yeah, don't forget he was the young, not the young. He was the Padawan of Count Dooku.
Yep.
Right.
So, there's that edge to him, you know.
He's part of that weird
he
ass
also,
lineage.
yeah, he also invented the Force Ghost.
Yeah, he was the one that figured that out.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah. I wish we got to see more of him. I was thrilled with his 10-second cameo in Kenobi. I think that's just the perfect touch right there at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, to get someone to come in and shoot and put all this shit on to just
just stand there for a minute. We're gonna
great.
make you a ghost, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, this may be because I'm very high on episode 1 right now, but yeah, my thing is Qui-Gon.
Well, I mean, he's an incredibly important character in the saga, despite only appearing in one film. I do think it's crazy that I feel like I've heard there's a deleted scene of Revenge of the Sith where he does appear as a Force ghost to Obi-Wan. I don't know if I've actually seen that scene or not, but I think it's crazy that they wouldn't have put that in the movie.
I don't
tie the movie to the first one. It seems like it would have been a great.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually him.
It's not actually him.
Well,
there was, but it corrected itself.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was one of those scenes where it was on the drawing board and it never came to fruition.
Oh, they never really filmed it.
Okay. Yeah.
Just
I feel like that would have been great to a little tag for that film, but even that he's just in Phantom Menace. I mean, he's the one that finds Anakin. He's like a believer in the prophecy. You know, I feel like what you were saying, you were kind of setting him up. You called him like a conservative Jedi, but also like, you know, a little bit of a defiant, and you were saying that counteracts itself. But it's part of it's like he's, you know, the council doesn't necessarily believe in the prophecy as strongly as he does. Like he's someone that's believing in this like old tale. You know, he's like an Orthodox Jedi or something, which in turn kind of makes him more more defiant.
Yep.
Because he believes in this interpretation of the ancient Jedi text or whatever that that other people are ignoring or not really paying attention to or whatever. Like,
or
but
burning in later movies.
Because of that, he brings in Anakin for better or for worse. And no one else really would have done that. No other Jedi would have done that.
Right.
Other than him, because he believed in it so strongly. So like he is a devout Jedi, in his own way.
Yeah.
In that, you don't, and that he like Liam Neeson like plays it that way, the way he carries himself and like the way he delivers his lines, and I think that, it's hard to imagine another. I don't know. It's hard to imagine another Jedi doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't menace.
The word you used, orthodox, was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of, when you use the term orthodox for an Orthodox Jewish person, it's someone who is set in the by the book.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Sure.
And that's sort of what he reminds me of. He's almost too much because they don't allow him on the council, and
Yeah, like they don't like him.
No.
Yeah.
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 So if you're going by the book with your option, mine's going to be very unconventional for my number 5.
All right.
It will be one Caleb Doom, a.k.a. Kanan Jarrus.
Wow. Not talking about him yet.
Okay.
My number 5 is someone that I don't think we'll be talking about yet. My number 5 is Ahsoka Tano.
No, we're not talking about her yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. All right, Matt, what's your number 4? Light side Force user. Get some discussions going
if
here.
Ahsoka's
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty sure you're not. Yeah, okay.
I'm not reinventing the wheel here. Like, maybe a little bit.
My 6 through 15 are very unique, but my 1 through 5 are not.
Okay. Sorry, Matt. Go
my
ahead.
number 4. My number 4 is Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, we're not talking about him yet.
We're not talking about him yet. That's a low ranking for what I expected from you, Matt. I'm surprised. Not saddened or disheartened in any way. I'm just surprised.
All right, my number.
I'm looking at my 7 Luke Skywalker Funkos over there, and they're all looking at me with disgust.
Oh yeah, I forgot my visual for Kanan.
Oh yeah, no, nice.
Forgot we're a visual medium, so I grabbed all the books I could.
I forget that all the time. We're a visual medium as well. So Steve, number 4 for you.
Number 4 for me is the chosen one himself, Anakin Skywalker.
Anakin Skywalker.
I'd assume we're not talking about him yet.
Are we talking about Anakin, Matt?
We're not talking about him yet.
I didn't think so. My number 4, someone we might be talking about. I don't know. My number 4 is Rey.
Wow.
Okay.
Talking about Rey?
Matt, we talking about Rey?
I'm gonna surprise you a bit. She's not on my list.
Wow, that's also surprising for me, Matthew.
Yeah.
All right.
I love Rey. What an incredible character.
Well, you could have put her on your list.
It's number 7 for me.
Now,
I love her as well. I think she's an incredible character. She gets a lot of undeserved flack, similar to how we talked about Kylo Ren, I think. You know, you hear people hate her because she didn't struggle like Luke. It's like, yeah, I don't like how much does Luke struggle? I don't know what you're talking about. You know, like how much struggle do you want? She literally dies in episode 9.
Right.
He comes back to life. Like,
I mean, outside of his dad cutting his arm off, Luke didn't struggle for anything.
Yeah, and also,
I mean, his uncle telling him to not go to Tashi Station, like,
yeah, and he just whines about it, just being treated like a regular teenager. Oh, sorry.
Right.
Rey is a character who you know so much about before she even says a word in The Force Awakens. That movie, one of the best things that Force Awakens does is tell you who the characters are. It defines its characters incredibly well and incredibly quickly. You know, before she even says a word of dialogue, you know that she's been stuck on that planet for a long time, simultaneously dreams of leaving, but also is terrified to leave, to seek something better for herself, that she's scared of growing up and being stuck there her whole life. However, it feels like she can't leave. And despite all this, despite growing up in pretty shitty conditions on a pretty shitty planet, she's still an incredibly kind person. You know, she has been quote unquote raised, I guess, by this Unkar Plutt character, or has been a big figure in her life who has taught her about fixing ships and flying and all this stuff like that. We know that she already knows how to fight. She's that staff. Like, she's her own person. You know, she doesn't need someone else to come in and tell her what she should be doing. Like, there's a little bit of that in New Hope, where like if Luke didn't run into Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan's like, you need to come to Alderaan with me and learn the ways of the Force like your dad. And he's like, no. Like she already has like found kind of who she is as best she can in the place that she is in, which is not a place that she chose to be in. And then once she is able to leave, she's able to continue to explore herself and find who she is and use what she already knows in practical application in better ways. But her problem, her struggle, if you're desperate for a struggle for this character, she doesn't believe in herself. She doesn't have confidence because of where she came from, because of who she is. She doesn't believe that she could be the answer. Like she's like, oh, Han Solo, you're gonna be the Resistance needs you or whatever. Or, oh, I need to go find Luke Skywalker. The Resistance needs you. Like, oh, it's gonna be Ben. I'm gonna go train. Like, Ben's gonna turn. Like, no, Rey, it is you. You are the one that the Resistance needs. That she doesn't realize that until the very end of Last Jedi and into Rise of Skywalker.
So you mentioned Rey, like us having Rey defined before she even speaks a word.
Yeah.
You know what 99% of that is? John Williams. Because as soon as you said that score, like Rey's theme with that flute going into that like cello drop went through my head, and I was just like, yeah, that's her in a nutshell.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree that it's 99% of it. I mean, John Williams plays into all these the themes that John Williams writes for these characters helps define them immeasurably.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot of the writing and the direction and the cinematography of that film.
The cinematography of that was amazing too. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the beginning, it shows her leaving that the Star Destroyer and going to the station that I'm forgetting the name of or whatever. But like there's like wide sweeping shots which shows you like the planet, but also shows you like how by herself she is.
Yeah.
Like she's doing this alone. And she has to travel this far to get to other people who treat her like shit, and it's a shitty place, and she doesn't want to be there, so she goes and hangs out in her little
and gets
where she feels comfortable, where she feels at home,
and gets almost no reward for it, no money
1/4 portion
food at Nima Outpost.
Nima Outpost, that's what it was.
Yeah. See how I worked that in there? I was like,
yeah, appreciate
I know this one.
I'll retrofit it to like 65%, Mike.
Sure.
Okay.
It's so and we see her sticking up for a droid and the whole Telma Parkwa scene, and it just was such an incredible character.
I agree. Yeah, I love her.
Absolutely. And
so anyway, Rey is my number 4.
So as dumb as this sounds, Rey is my 7 on my light side list, but I feel like I like her more than I like Kylo Ren, who is number 5 on my dark side list. I feel like there's just more light side users that have had an impact on me.
I think I agree. I honestly I'm confident in my dark side list, but I don't know that I could make a top. I don't think I can make a top 15 dark side users list because I just don't know that many of them because I haven't read the books, I haven't read the comics, and they don't give you a ton of dark side users in the movies, really, or even in the series. Like that's kind of what you get. Like I would have to dip into the Night Sisters, like you were saying.
Right, and if I had to compile a top 10 all-time Force users, like. I mean, outside of Maul and Vader, I don't know if anybody else in my top 5 makes my top 10.
Right. Sure.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So,
all right. So we're on to number 3.
3 for Matt.
The Chosen One. Anakin Skywalker.
All right. Well, Anakin's not on my list, so we can talk about him.
Okay. That's well, in all honesty, like I was trying to figure out who you left off to throw Rey in there compared to my list, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that's it. That's got to be it.
The faces that Matt is giving me when I'm dropping these
are crazy. It's the whole time I'm like, okay, how's he gonna blow this up like he did last year? And then not blow it up in a bad way.
Not really. No. Yeah.
You know what? No, I know. I respect it, and Anakin, and his struggles and his turn, um, is the basis of the first 6 movies. Um, he, like we discussed, Clone Wars, uh, enhanced him a great deal. You know, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, Clone Wars and Ahsoka. Like, as dumb as it
Sure.
sounds, were it not for Clone Wars into those Hayden scenes and the World Between Worlds scene and all that in Ahsoka, it's like that further brought him up. Like, he might not have made my top 5 were it not for that stuff.
mm-hmm.
And
I mean, that's. Sorry, go ahead.
No, what's up?
I was gonna say that. I mean, the reason that he's not in my top 5.
Yep.
Is that the way that he's portrayed in the prequels, which is my introduction to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then even in Clone Wars, I mean, he's great in Clone Wars, but it's not like he's not the main character of Clone Wars. It's not like he's not even in every episode. He's in a lot of them, and some of them are great, but it's never
just him.
It's never just him. There's has not been a piece of Star Wars media that has given me a deep personal connection to Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
In a way. And like, as I said in the beginning, I was kind of going up like, do they use the Force? Yes. And then ranking just, are they my favorite character? And Anakin isn't. So,
yeah. No, it makes sense.
I am not at all saying that he's not an important character. He's clearly one of the most important characters in the entire saga. And, probably maybe the best Jedi of all time, just like skill wise, speaking.
Yeah.
Certainly one of the most powerful ever. So
he is the chosen one.
Any point that you two are going to make about Anakin Skywalker, I'm not going to disagree with at all. But like, if we're ranking favorites, he's not going to be in my top 5.
Fair enough.
That's all I'll say about it.
Matt, did you have anything else on Anakin or?
No, I think everything's been said. He, the portrayal, now that I think about it, I think Anakin is the only character that's been portrayed 3 different ways, through animation, through
2 different actors.
Yeah, Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen, which is kind
of
interesting.
Don't forget Matt Lanter.
No, I know. I just he said animation,
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Matt Lanter as well.
Yeah.
Matt. He was the one who voiced him in Clone Wars.
Yep.
Right. That's what I meant. And Sebastian Shaw, I guess.
True.
Cantaloupe Head. But
yeah. No, and Anakin, I mean, I think what Lanter did with him, and like, I guess to a degree, you have the Mortis arc, which is very heavily Anakin. You have a lot of heavy Anakin stuff. But yeah, you're right. I don't know how much is just him.
Right.
But he's still like, I don't know. His stuff, especially like I said, Clone Wars and the Ahsoka stuff resonated with me. So, my number 3, I don't think we're talking about now. The farm boy.
Luke Skywalker?
Yes.
We're not talking about it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, since we've had Anakin at 3, then is this where the fun begins, Mike? Who's your number 3?
My number 3, someone we're about to talk about, because I don't think they're on Matt's list. My number 3 is Kanan Jarrus.
Okay.
/ Caleb Doom. However you want to say. He's always Kanan to me.
Yeah.
I love this guy. I love him so much. Like, it takes a lot for me to put him at number 3. And I think he's he's the only one that I would put under my number. I mean, this is an obvious thing that I'm ranking them, but like,
right.
If it weren't for number 2 and 1, he would be number 1. I guess that's a stupid thing to say because that's what ranking is.
No, and I get you though.
Yeah,
I get exactly what you're saying because and again, going into that show, did you ever think Freddie Prinze Jr. would be your favorite Star Wars character or one of your favorite Star Wars characters?
No.
When they announced that, I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah. Not at all. I think I like him so much because his story is so different from other Jedi or other Force users that we see. Like, he is someone who witnessed Order 66, escaped it, fled, is on the run, is in hiding, is, has to hide the fact that he is a Jedi for fear of his life. That's like, until Fallen Order, the video game, we hadn't seen that kind of story for a Jedi. I think he has to it's up to him to complete his own training, kind of, or to continue his own training. He has to learn things for himself. And he has to learn everything for himself. He's another person that despite all of his success in those areas, he's still someone that struggles with his own confidence in himself and his ability to do things. But he does take it upon himself to train Ezra. But he still doubts himself quite a bit. And he, talks to Hera a lot about I don't know if I'm doing this right. Or when he's either training Ezra or training Sabine, I don't know if I'm doing this, this might not be the best way, but he pushes through and he succeeds with both those characters. And then, God damn it, he loses his eyesight. And that gives him even a crazier just layer to his character, which is another thing that we hadn't seen in Star Wars before. And he's still able to negotiate through that, and he becomes even more closer to his relationship with the Force deepens through that accident and through him needing, through him being blind.
Accident?
And just
I don't know. That's really an accident. Getting slashed across the face is not really an accident per se.
I mean,
did he step into a lightsaber blade?
He didn't do it to himself on purpose.
Fair. I was just walking and a lightsaber blade.
Yeah.
Just happened to come across my eyes. It's fine.
All right. Incident. I'll say, Mr. Yeah.
I'm just picturing him tripping and falling and just grazed by a lightsaber. Oh, can't see anymore. All right, fine.
I don't know. I just think
what happened? Oh, I ran into a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Not again.
I just think he's an incredibly compelling character and a very unique amongst Jedi characters that we see. But Steve, he was on your list as well, so why don't you talk about Kanan for a little bit?
No, and again, like we've talked, a lot of these characters that we've put in these places are there because of growth and watching this arc. And ultimately, my number one is 100% because of that. But Kanan, when we meet him, is this unsure, out for himself kind of character that is just doing what he's doing in this crew. And by the end of it, he is the most selfless character around. He is, like you said, successful at learning how to be a teacher, which is not in his nature. And basically being, for lack of a better description, a father figure to this crew.
For sure.
That just ends up, spoiler alert, sacrificing everything in one of those moments that I don't care who you are, if you've watched that show and you see that scene and you don't break down or come close to it, you're I don't know what's going on. But that just hit so deep after watching him over 4 seasons of development. And it's just, he was a great character that had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah. Yep. I love him.
Yep.
Anyway.
Numero dos.
Number twos. Let's get it, Matt.
Hello there.
Yeah.
When I think about a classic Jedi and everything a Jedi should be, I know we're not talking about Jedi, instead we're talking about Force users, but I mean, so pure, so, General of the Republic,
You just want to say his name real quick?
Oh, yes. Ben Quadraro. No, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And again, maybe it's because I just...
He is my number 2.
Oh.
Okay.
How about you?
He's not on my list.
Okay, there's the wrinkle. I had figured out the classification for the rest of them that I did not foresee in there. All right.
I don't know that you have, Steve.
Huh?
I don't know.
No, I'm saying what I was calculating.
Okay.
Like I was like,
Okay.
oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
he's got Ray in there instead, but everything else should trickle. But
yeah,
I don't know. You're throwing
You never
some wonky things in here.
I didn't think I was throwing. I guess I thought that you guys would be shocked that Obi-Wan wasn't on my list. I guess I think probably a lot of people probably are shocked that Obi-Wan's not on my list.
Judging by the general populace, yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll get this out of the way since we're talking about it. Similar to Anakin, I think I'm not a prequel fan. Sorry, I'm not a prequel fan. When you look at the prequels and you look at the original trilogy, it just the prequels didn't do a great. Obi-Wan's story specifically, I think the prequels don't really line up with the original trilogy in that way. Like they don't really give a reason why Obi-Wan would straight up lie to Luke Skywalker for so long.
And forget he had a droid and all this other stuff.
Yeah, just lie about having a droid, like all this kind of stuff. Like, what are you?
I mean,
I don't understand.
He did not lie. He never once owned R2.
Okay.
Did he own R2?
He didn't say I've never owned this droid. He said I've never owned a droid, is what he said, which is a lie. He also was, was the other droid that is there. Flew him away from Mustafar after he just left his best friend for dead on the edge of a volcano. So like he knows these droids. He knows both of them.
Right, and he had R4 in his fighter. Like
yeah. So anyway,
yeah.
I don't know the whole Yoda and Obi-Wan don't really learn from their mistakes in the prequels. They are so high on their Jedi horses that Darth Sidious is allowed to like sneak in and take them out, and they're clueless. They have no idea that it's even happening, and then they decide to instead of utilizing any like new teachings, they just bestow the same teachings on Luke, which then in turn sets Luke up for failure in the future. So that storyline, the way that is portrayed, kind of dips Obi-Wan down in my rankings. He would certainly be in my top 10, but he's not in my top 5.
See, now on the flip side of all that,
yeah, let's. I don't like talking negative stuff. I'm just trying to get through that as fast as I can. Let's talk positive shit about Obi-Wan Kenobi because I love him. He's great.
So on the flip side of that, you are also talking about a character who, through the course of the prequels, was thrown into a complete shit circumstance by the fact that he was like, his master got killed and his dying wish was for him to train this boy who he has no right to train.
Something he did not want to do.
Right. Yeah. And the council, for some ungodly reason, actually agrees. I think that's more on them than on Obi-Wan. I think he did as well as he could have with Anakin. He became a great father figure to him. He was one of the few voices of reason through the Galactic Republic's war in the Clone Wars. Yes, towing the company line, but also, trusting Anakin at various points when he needed to. The disconnect between episodes 3 and 4, I'll give you. That's whatever. Various hand wavy bullshit happened. But the dude sacrificed everything to sit on Tatooine and stare at a kid for 20 years to ensure that there's a remote hope that they can defeat this kid's dad. Now that I'm saying this is a really weird concept. However, it really worked.
Yeah, no, it really did. I really like, I don't know. That's my 20-foot view of Obi-Wan. I do think he's great in Revenge of the Sith. He's probably my favorite in Revenge of the Sith. I think he's great in Clone Wars, and I really think he's great in his series, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Is that his
show?
Is that his like side show, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show? Does he interview Sith that come on? And
it's a talk show.
Has a heart to heart.
It's him going crazy on Tatooine. No one actually comes on. He just thinks he's talking to people.
He's in his cave just talking.
He builds like a pile of rocks and then he like interviews it. I think it really works for me in that series. Really works for me because that series takes place after we've seen his journey through these 3 movies, and we know how just again, like similar I was saying about Kanan, he's in hiding, he was on the run. It's like he's not allowed to be himself. He's gone through this like traumatic experience. He thinks he killed his best friend, like all this and it's well depicted the weight that has on him in that show. I really think that's great. But back to like Phantom Menace, like we talked about, like he doesn't really do anything in that whole movie. But as it goes on, his character, regardless of what becomes of his character, he does a lot of really cool stuff and clearly is, I don't know, he's a great Jedi. He's one of the best.
Wow, he really doesn't do much in Phantom Menace.
No, he doesn't do anything.
No, he cuts Maul in half and that's it.
He sits around and talks until he fights Maul at the end. It's really...
Even during that fight, he doesn't do a whole hell of a lot until Qui-Gon's
because he's stuck behind the energy shield for so long. Yeah,
he's just chilling there.
You're right, Master. The negotiations were short.
Yeah, what a banger joke that is. Just laugh, Ryan.
Guess what? On Sunday, we're going to have to do that in person.
I can't wait.
I'm wondering...
You mean tomorrow? We're going to have to do that in person.
Tomorrow?
Right?
Sunday?
Yeah, today is May the 4th. We're recording this live, aren't we?
Right, at the ass crack of dawn in the morning so that people can see it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've hit R2. We haven't hit R2. I don't think he's force sensitive. But who is your...
Matt, did you want to say anything about Obi-Wan? I feel like you didn't say much about Obi-Wan. And he's your number 2.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting dynamic that I'm just thinking about now. I don't know why I haven't thought about this till now. He was Anakin's master, and he attempts to fix the problems and the wrong he did with Anakin. Not the wrong, but the mistake he made. Again, not mistake he made with Anakin by counseling Luke. And he was Luke's guardian angel, for lack of a better term.
No, that is a great term. Not lack of a better. That's a perfect one. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, it's early in the morning on the 4th, and I'm.
We had to wake up really early to record this for you guys, so
yes.
I hope you listeners are thankful.
Yeah. Anyway, I just think that I mean the Obi-Wan Kenobi series did so much for him too. I think it sort of bridged the gap between the two characters and explained a bunch. He defeated Vader twice. And if Vader is to some the most powerful dark side user, and he defeated him twice, there's something to be said about that.
And
Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say for any of the perceived faults of that show, I don't think there was any faults in anything relating to McGregor or Obi-Wan, or the Obi-Wan Anakin situation.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I would. I don't know what the story would be, but I would really love another season of that show.
Yeah,
to be honest, like I know
I would too, but the story has to be real good, and I don't know if you can top that first season.
I know, and I don't know what it would be because I don't.
I don't think they could bring Maul back. Yeah.
I don't think they could get him off of Tatooine.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Can we just see Twin Sons in live action?
Yeah, right. That'd be cool.
But
that'd be cool.
Yeah, just a one-off. There's no. It's just a beat for beat replay of that in live action. It's fine.
Right.
So.
And you'd have to make him look older, I suppose.
I'll just wait a couple of years.
And he starts kind of talking like Alec Guinness. That would be cool too.
Yeah.
His accent starts changing a little bit. That'd be cool.
So he gains the accent. It changes because he's just talking to himself in the cave for so long.
Yeah, he's interviewing that pile of rocks for so long.
It's him doing that talk show. It's him moving into his house. Be like, oh. Right. I'm going to put Anakin's lightsaber in this box here.
Yeah.
Forget about it for 10 years.
And then I'll tell this kid that his dad wanted him to have it.
Yeah. And I hope the kid goes like this.
Yeah. It's right down the barrel of it. So, Steve, he was yours. That's why we're talking about Obi-Wan.
Yes, he was also my number 2.
Your number 2. All right. So I feel like based on everything that we're talking about, this is going to be a surprise for you guys, but I think it's probably because the way, like I mentioned, I said, my criteria was, do they use the Force? And then how much do I love them as a character? My number 2 is Leia Organa.
Okay.
Wow.
Because she's Princess Goddamn Leia, and she's one of the greatest characters in all of Star Wars. So, and yes, she uses the Force quite dramatically in some ways that we see. So
that one would take it down a peg for me. I did not have her on my list strictly because in my brain I did not put 2 and 2 together on that.
Me too.
Mostly because we don't ever actually, outside of said scene you're mentioning,
Last Jedi,
we don't see any
Empire. Luke calls her at the end of Empire. She hears Luke's voice and turns the ship around.
Yeah, it doesn't mean she's using the Force.
Well, she's communicating through the Force, so she if you can't use
she's
the Force,
not communicating back to him. He's just sending something to someone. She never says, "Hey, hang on," via the Force. Luke's just calling.
BRB.
I always interpreted that scene as you would need to be a Force user in order to be able to receive that message.
Oh, see, I always took it as Luke's just doing a Find My iPhone and just sending it out.
I always thought it was him calling to her because he just kind of felt a connection. He clearly doesn't know at that point that they're brother and sister, but he feels a connection with her, and that was his best option to get somebody to respond to him. I always, maybe, Wikipedia could tell me I'm wrong. But I always assumed that you couldn't hear that unless you were also a Force user. I don't think non-Force users can see Force ghosts. I could be wrong about that too. But I don't think a Force ghost could appear to me, and
Either way, doesn't need to be on the technicality because she is technically a Force user.
She's a Force user. Yeah. I just think she's one of the greatest. Certainly one of the greatest female characters of all time, and one of the greatest characters in Star Wars. I've said this before, that I think, George Lucas gets a tremendous amount of deserved praise for creating this saga that we love so much, and also pioneering all the technical advancements that it took to create that first movie and all subsequent ones as well, or most of the subsequent ones anyway. But I think he doesn't get enough praise for, in 1977, putting an absolute badass, take no shit from any man that I'm in any scene with type of female character in a movie, up front and center. Like, you meet her before you meet Han Solo, you meet her before you meet Luke Skywalker. Like, she is the first named, besides the droids, she's the first named character that you meet in, or hero, I should say, that you meet in Star Wars. And she walks up right up to Darth Vader and doesn't take any shit from him at all. So when it comes to Force users, she's clearly, and she's so important. She's so important to the original trilogy and even the sequel trilogy as well. Like, she's important to the entire story. I love that no one was expecting her to show up in Obi-Wan, and that was
built the show around her.
Built a show around her, and something that we never thought of. We never thought we'd see a young Leia, and it was perfect. It made perfect sense to have her there. Deepened the character for sure. I feel like we're talking about that show a lot in this episode.
Yeah.
But deservedly. But also, the way that she's treated in the sequel trilogy, I think, is great. I think it's great that she's a general. Like, and they go over this in Rise of Skywalker, where Luke did give her training, and she decided that she was better off in going back to being a general and leading a military general, and she could serve the Force or serve the galaxy better in that way. And I feel like it takes a strong person to know where they're needed the most, because, like, as we see, whether or not you like that scene in Last Jedi, I'm not arguing the merits of that scene, because it 100% doesn't work for me either. Although I think that if we had seen someone like Anakin or Luke do that in Last Jedi, I think people would have gone nuts for it and not had a problem with it. I think it was because we hadn't seen her use the Force to that extent ever before.
Right. Never overtly.
Never overtly. Yes, exactly. Whether or not the Empire thing counts, notwithstanding, never overtly like that. I think that was such a shock to people that made them doubt it. And also, we know that there's tons of misogynists, unfortunately, in the Star Wars fandom that don't think women should be able to do anything in Star Wars or even be in Star Wars. So, like, that's a part of it as well. Right. But, like, whether or not or it's just too over the top, it's too strong, it's too goofy, and part of me thinks that. But whether or not you enjoy that scene or not, it shows you, and I think the whole point of that scene, why that scene is in there, is they need to show you how powerful she is with the Force in general.
Yeah.
So whether or not you think that was executed as well as it could have been or whatever, it does show that. It does show how powerful she is with the Force. And for someone to be that powerful and that in tune with the Force, but still realize, no, I can do better if I give up this power. She walks away from all that power. She still has it. She knows she can use it, and she decides to go and utilize herself and her talents elsewhere.
Well,
in the galaxy. And I think that's commendable. And I think it takes a strong person, a strong character to not be seduced by that amount of power.
It does. And I mean, as you know, with great power comes great responsibility.
Great responsibility. And that's why my number one is Peter Parker.
Right.
Sorry.
Wait, no, wrong list. Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, Leia didn't dawn on me, but like it makes total sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was just that was my, like, I went,
right.
I checked the box for Force user, and then it was character love ranking. Right. Oh yeah.
So, and we did open it to all Force users. So
that's why I was Force users and not Jedi. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was your number 2.
That's my number 2. Here we are.
Matthew Beceda, who is your number 1?
Before I say my number 1, can I mention an honorable mention that I don't think is on anyone's list, but I think what he represents is important as a Force user.
Babu Frick.
Yeah. Broom Boy.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was not my number 1. I can confirm that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also not my number 1. Yeah.
Sure. I think what he represents is important. He's not. I mean, Jedi and white side Force users are a beacon of hope in
and that kid is just that.
Yeah, he represents the whole point of The Last Jedi, is that anybody can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the whole point, but it's a major theme in The Last Jedi, is that
you
don't have to, you can come from anywhere and still be
Blag
important.
is his name.
Say that again?
Tamiri Blag.
Tamiri Blag.
Today I learned something.
Congratulations, Tamiri Blag. You made the honorable mention on the Multiverse Report.
Sounds like a marijuana. Anyway.
Dude, I got so high off a bunch of Tamiri Blag the other day. It was so good.
Yeah. It was. Anyway.
Hit me, Matt.
I'm very interested in your guys' number one, because I think I know who it is for you guys.
I don't know if I know Mike's.
I've been throwing curveballs left and right, apparently.
And I don't think it's the same as mine. But
I think I know what yours is. I'm
pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think I know.
Yeah, mine is Yoda.
That was my guess.
Yeah. Which my sense is it is not one of yours.
Yoda's number 6 on my list.
Yeah, I knew it. Can I guess your number one? Can I guess your number one?
Does the shirt give it away?
Yeah. Did I give you that shirt?
Yes, you did.
Nice. Secret Santa one year, or birthday or something. Yeah. Nice.
So Yoda is your number one. Mike?
Yoda is would also be my number 6. He's not on my top 5. Yeah. And again, that for me, I love Yoda. I love Yoda. But for me, it's the similar thing to what I said about Obi-Wan, where like
that is the creepiest Yoda, by the way.
It's very creepy. The way he's depicted in Empire and Return of the Jedi to me is very different than the way he's depicted in the prequel films. He seems like humorless, and he's kind of an a-hole to young Anakin, a frightened boy that's standing in front of him. So the prequels ding Yoda for me a little bit, but I still I love him immensely. I love him immensely. It pains me to not have a top 5 list where I could put Yoda. Yeah,
sure.
Also, possibly my favorite Star Wars theme, John Williams theme, is Yoda's theme.
I mean, what a beautiful piece.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
I think he is the most purest form of goodness in the galaxy. I think he I just you think of Yoda and you think of the Force. It's he. I mean, we assume he's a he. I don't know. It's for all the faults of George Lucas during the prequel era, you have this smash hit in Star Wars, and then you go to Empire Strikes Back, and the guy that is going to guide this film and be the centerpiece is going to train your main protagonist is a green frog like character. It's incredible.
Literally a Muppet.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not British, you don't get that reference. But
there was an interview in that great documentary Empire Dreams.
Yeah.
That I stole that from, but it's Yoda is just pure goodness, and
you take the light side and yeah,
pure goodness, but also you see through the course that he's flawed and that he's not omnipotent.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that does help his character to a degree, but also like Mike, like you said, how we get much like the Obi-Wan jump from 3 to 4, how do we get from episode 3 to smacking R2 with a stick in Empire?
That's like one of my I like the duality of Yoda in the original trilogy and also in Last Jedi as well. I think Last Jedi Yoda feels more like Empire Strikes Back Yoda than
very much
prequel Yoda does. Because in Empire Strikes Back and also in Last Jedi, he's just like a little stinker.
Yeah.
You know, like he's just like causing trouble and like making himself laugh and shit. Like he's just
we are what they grow beyond. My favorite
and he's got
Yoda
some
quote.
of the greatest lines, in all of Star Wars. His thing in Last Jedi is incredible. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. And Empire is wild, so good. He's like, not only like good and powerful in the Force, like you were saying, Matt, but like he's just so the wisdom that he has, and they give him the quirk of the strange syntax talking. Which also
good relations I have with the Wookiees
makes him sound.
I love that line.
The syntax talking makes him sound more wise in some way, even though he's talking wrong. Like it seemed like makes everything he say seem like more like ancient wisdom or something.
Also,
like people haven't spoken like this
wrong,
in thousands of years.
But in Tales of the Jedi, Yaddle doesn't speak like that.
Correct. I believe it is.
We realize that he's just drunk all the time and doesn't know how to talk.
Yeah, I can't remember which Star Wars podcast I was listening to that someone looked this up on it and said that, and it just turns out that he just chooses to talk that way, which I think is a stupid explanation.
I mean, we still have, and never will know what species he is, so whatever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I like it as a character choice, I guess. I wish that it wasn't just, he just decides to talk like that, because that doesn't make any sense at all. But Yoda's the best, and he's always like,
well, Yoda's number 6 for you and I.
Yeah,
so he's not the best.
He's the best number 6 in all the land of sixes. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about him really. It's just everyone knows he's Yoda.
Yeah, he's Yoda.
Yo Yoda.
Bravo, Weirdo.
Thanks.
We were listening to that the other day.
So this is interesting. This is really cool that I feel like both our lists have been more different than I expected them to be.
Yeah.
And neither list, dark side or light side, none of us shared a number 1, which I think is interesting. But Steve, you already for the listeners that can't see your shirt, why don't you go ahead and reveal what your number 1 light side Force user is?
None other than Snips herself, Ahsoka Tano.
Ahsoka Tano.
Because
she did not appear on Matt's list, I believe. Not on your top 5
She
list.
did not.
She was number 5 on my list.
So
Steve, let's talk Ahsoka. Hit us.
I mentioned earlier that most of my lists were based off of arcs and growth as a character. And I don't think there is another character in Star Wars that has taken the growth and taken the arc and taken the limelight of an entire show from being an annoying side character to the centerpiece of multiple seasons of a show to having her own live action show. Like that arc. I still remember when Clone Wars debuted, and I was just like, what the hell is this? Anakin doesn't need a Padawan. What's going on? And at some point, a couple years later, like a couple seasons in, looking at it and being like, holy shit, she's the best character on this show.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Like, I don't know how or why, but she just, like, her growth and the trials and tribulations she went through, along with how she interacts with and the influence she had on both Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's just impact.
And you say that she's been in this show, she's been in Rebels, and she was in her own live action series, and you mentioned her arc. Like in every one of those series, there's never she's always arcing. She's always progressing,
always character growth
as a character. She's always developing. There's never it's not like she showed up in Rebels and was just, hey, I'm Ahsoka, I'm here to help out, and was just like a background character or just a cameo or something. Like she has a deep arc in Rebels, as well as Clone Wars, as well as her own series, and of course she's going to have it in her own series. I mean, I guess you would assume she would have it in her own series.
But even in Mandalorian, like she shows up twice in Mandalorian, and both times they make sense. It's not just like throwing Ahsoka in for throwing Ahsoka in. It's like, oh, okay, like her being where she is at any of these points, makes perfect sense. So
I agree. I think and I think I was talking to Jesse at Funky Town when the series was on, the Ahsoka series, and I'm pretty sure that she's had more screen time than possibly any other Star Wars character collectively, including like Luke Skywalker or maybe even Vader at this point. Like
definitely over any of the OT.
Certainly over the OT. With the amount of time she's been on Clone Wars and Rebels and in her series, but also probably rivaling, like, who else? Maybe, I mean, not actor, but maybe Obi-Wan Kenobi is possibly, or Anakin.
Or
like,
Anakin.
Those got to be the only two that could possibly, give her a run for her money. But I feel like,
and that's only if you give Anakin Vader as well.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and there's definitely like plenty of episodes where she's in it way more than Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Oh, 100%.
I feel like there's more episodes where it's just her.
You've
than
got the
there
whole
are episodes
arcs
where
with
it's
like
just
her
Obi-Wan
and
and just Anakin.
Right. Yeah. There's a whole bunch, and like even I brought up Mortis earlier, but even her stuff in Mortis is also forefront. Like, each of those three has a very distinct part of that, but it's like, they find a way to feature her in a lot of things. And Filoni really, like, it's Filoni's baby, like 100%.
Yeah.
But
he'll always find a way to feature her.
Right. But it's always been done in a way that works or makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, also don't forget Tales of the Jedi. She's the other, we talked about how Dooku's Tales of the Jedi, but she's the other half of that series.
Right.
I think they did a great job. Like, I believe, was it George's idea? I guess it was maybe Dave Filoni's. Was it George's idea to give Anakin a Padawan?
I can't remember. I actually remember
I feel like it was
reading
Lucas's idea, and then Filoni just created the character. But I think the idea of giving Anakin a Padawan is a really cool one that I don't think we thought was possible.
Right.
And then, like you said, she starts out being kind of like an annoying kid. But it's a really smart idea to have that character be a Padawan to Anakin Skywalker, because it immediately links them to all the other main characters, because a lot of the other main characters are linked to Anakin already. So that ties her into the main storyline of Star Wars immediately, but also gives her free reign to go and do her own things and be her own character. And she is not a Skywalker. She's not tied into the family. But she does love Anakin in a different way and sees him from a different way and experiences him in different ways. And so when we do see her interact with Anakin or Obi-Wan or like it, or later when we see her, we see her in Rebels, we see her in, when she meets Darth Maul, we know that she's fought him in Clone Wars. We also know that she knows that Obi-Wan killed him and he came back to life to try to kill Obi-Wan. Like, she's a part of this lineage.
Right.
In a way that other, like Ventress isn't, because she doesn't have that direct connection to Anakin. She doesn't study next to him or like a main character or anything like that. So it immediately puts her, immediately ties her into like the core, makes her a core character, I think.
Right.
Immediately. And that's a decision, like, oh, if Anakin's not a master, then he can't have a Padawan. Well, guess what? That's not true.
Yeah. Well, and even in that, even within the arc, like, her whole thing of having the strength to step away from the Jedi.
Yeah.
Like after they accuse her of the bombing, and then she's just like, no, like they all are like, oh, we're sorry, come on back.
All right, come on back.
She's like, no,
No,
like you did. That's not what I'm doing. That's not where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it fits and it works. And weirdly, seeing now what we're apparently going to see of Barriss turning into an Inquisitor adds another level to that arc. But it just, I am no Jedi.
I know.
Like,
so cool.
Those 4 words, when she uttered them in Rebels, it was just like,
yeah,
it just hit.
Yeah, and how weighty is that fight with Vader? That because you know the history, you've seen Clone Wars, and then when she shows up, I remember losing my mind in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
when she's
was that Book of Boba Fett, not Mandalorian? Whatever, they're the same show.
She's in an episode of Mandalorian, but then
when I said 2, I was thinking that was that.
Yeah, because that is more of a Mandalorian episode.
The one with Morgan Elsbeth, right? Or no,
that one is the Mandalorian episode. That's but then she's with Luke and Grogu.
Okay, so that was the Book of Boba Fett one. Whatever, they're all the same. Those 3 seasons are the same show. 4 seasons.
And just seeing that, and I remember just my mind being completely blown. Like, I'm seeing Ahsoka Tano is talking to Luke Skywalker right now. Like this.
Yeah.
What?
I think even the first time we see her in Mandalorian, it was sort of expected. Mm-hmm. It was sort of teased by Bo-Katan in the previous episode.
Yeah.
But the first time you see her with those reveal the double white lightsabers, I mean, it's so badass.
Yeah, so cool.
I mean, when you can make your kyber crystals, when your kyber crystal color is determined because you didn't have any, killed a Sith, and then purified their crystals, sure. Like even just little details like that, you're like, all right,
yeah.
That's why you're number 1 for me.
That's why. Well, she's not number 1 for me. My number 1 is Luke Skywalker.
The farm boy himself?
Yep. Like I said, I'm not reinventing the wheel here.
No.
Picks. But
the fact that we, like you said, all 3 of us distinctly different number ones.
Great. I love it. That's why I love Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I love Star Wars. People see the same thing and take wildly different things away from it, connect to different things, interpret things in different ways. Luke Skywalker is my childhood hero. I love him. And not the I think I said this earlier in the episode. I don't know, it seems like it was 4 hours ago. I don't think he's necessarily the greatest Jedi of all time. A lot of people would argue that. He doesn't feel the Force until he's 19 years old or whatever, and even struggles to adapt to it or to start to use it. But it is that persistence that makes me love him so much. He's determined to become this thing that he's only dreamed about. He wants to embrace and or correct his father's legacy and put things right, set the galaxy right, and he works hard to do it and get there. Is he completely successful in it? I don't know. I don't know that as much as I love the original trilogy, those movies are in my heart, and those are the reasons that I fell in love with Luke Skywalker to begin with, and all of his moral standing. I don't know that he would be number 1 if it wasn't for his arc in The Last Jedi and what he does at the end of The Last Jedi. Realizing that he still can be a help to the Resistance despite being too old to face down the entire First Order with a laser sword. He's too old to fight Kylo Ren hand to hand, but he figures out a way to do it, sacrifices himself doing it. and becomes the legend that the galaxy needs Luke Skywalker to be.
Yeah.
That I need Luke Skywalker to be. He finds a way to do that. And it's those moments at the end of The Last Jedi that really, for me, cement him as my favorite Force user, I would say.
Fair. He was number
Yeah,
3 for me, which
He's number 4 for Matt. Yeah, lower, way
Yeah.
lower than I expected Matt to have.
Well, it switched many times for me.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I think I was telling you before the pod, Matt, my top 3, or what was it? It was mostly 2, 3, and 4. We're kind of all bouncing around.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
hell, Maul and Vader was back and forth until today. But yeah,
Luke, and I think you, to Mike's point, you need that. You need that failure.
Yeah,
To
it's the hero's journey.
Yeah.
I think Yoda even says, on the scene,
Greatest failure
where-
teacher is, or greatest teacher
Yeah.
failure is.
Yeah. And it's just so true. For me, my favorite scene in Star Wars ever is the end of Force Awakens, where Rey finds Luke, because it's so, oh my God, like this is the legend that I grew up idolizing, that you guys grew up idolizing, and this is what he looks like 30 years later. It's just so, God, it's so cool when he turns around and the hand, it just, he, that scene in Last Jedi, how he was able to help in some way, using brains over brawn. Is just brilliant.
Well, and coming to terms with
that
everything
movie,
with Ben.
That movie will never get the respect it deserves.
I'd agree. I think all 3 of us would agree.
I think it gets the respect it deserves from anyone that likes it. Gets it. And I don't. Who knows? I mean, Empire Strikes Back wasn't universally praised when it came out either. So who knows what 20 years will look like on that movie? But people will still get mad about it. Whatever, 5 years later. So
yeah,
sure.
Maybe things aren't maybe not looking good. But
well, again, the arcs though, like we see Farm Boy all the way to Jedi Master.
Yeah,
and of my list, I think pretty much everyone except Obi-Wan, you saw their arc. Although Obi-Wan, to a degree, like it was the sacrifice and whatnot, but a very different arc. Like there was plenty of character growth. But Luke was, like you said, it's just no matter what, he's going to be in my top 5 somewhere. Like,
absolutely.
I don't care who or how much Star Wars comes out or how compelling anything is. Luke Skywalker will always be near the top of the list.
It would take a lot to get him out of my top 5.
Yeah,
for sure. Take a lot.
Yeah,
a lot. Yeah, and then also the moment in Return of the Jedi, which speaks to his decision in Last Jedi, I think, where when he realizes he's pushing too hard, he cuts Vader's hand off, he looks at his own hand, he throws his lightsaber away.
Yeah.
He doesn't just put it back in his belt, he throws it away. Like, I'm not going to solve this with violence. Jedi's,
I literally
forced for knowledge and defense and not attack.
Mentioning
I'm not
this,
going to fight you. I'm not going to fight you.
Like, I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Father before me, yeah.
Like every time I hear that line, I get chills.
Yeah.
And as I said it, I'm like, oh, that's a visceral reaction. But like, to face down Palpatine, to do everything that he did. Yeah. It's to consciously have the faith that to have the faith in the Force that something will get you out of this situation.
Yeah.
And just do the right thing.
He's so loyal to his friends, almost to his detriment. You know,
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
so should
I think we did it, guys.
We did.
I think
Should we see what the commentariat had though?
Yes. What did our listeners say? And let's wrap this up because it's almost midnight and
It
we've
is.
been talking a very long time.
And we started early on Saturday, so it's been like 24 hours.
Yeah, I know.
You mean midnight Pacific time because it's
yeah. I mean, you're right. Sorry, you're right. I meant Pacific time.
The people that are watching live are like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. So we got a bunch of singular votes. One for Kyle Katarn, who I mentioned as a dual Force user from the EU. Actually from the Jedi Knight series of games, which was awesome. We have a Kit Fisto.
Oh,
which
nice.
I do love me some Kit Fisto.
I love his eyes.
We have a vote for Rey, a vote for Anakin. Because remember, we only asked the populace their favorite.
Their favorite.
We gave our top 5. This is just the favorite. We do have one Chirrut Imwe.
Wow. Now, he's never specified as a Force user, though. He believes in the Force.
If you can walk through that blaster field chanting, I am one with the Force and the Force is with me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's never outright shown or stated, though. I agree with you.
No, that is from a friend of the pod and your band member.
Okay.
Well, actually, that doesn't really narrow it down. It's Mark.
Well, it kind of does. Oh, okay.
Mark.
Yeah. I mean, I'd give it to him.
I'll allow it. No, I'll allow it.
Next up, with multiple votes each, Qui-Gon Jinn and Kanan Jarrus.
Woo, Can.
The next tier is a 4-way tie between Yoda, Mace Windu. Mace
Put
Windu.
Mace on the window.
That's what he went through on the way out of the tower.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That was the Mace Windu.
Yeah, there's a little plaque if you look there now. They call it the Mace Windu. They dedicated it to him.
That would have been so great in Revenge of the Sith if he didn't use Force Lightning, but he used Mace. Just get out there.
Yeah, it would be great.
You're done.
Yeah.
So Yoda, Mace Windu, Luke, and Ahsoka.
Wow.
Are a 4-way tie for second. And in first place,
it's gotta be Obi-Wan.
Hello there.
Well, sorry,
Obi-Wan
all you listeners,
Kenobi.
that I shat all over Obi-Wan this episode.
The populace loves them some Obi-Wan.
He'd be in my top 10. He'd probably be number 7.
Fair enough.
After Yoda, but not 5.
So we did have a couple that were like, one person said growing up it was Luke, now it's Obi-Wan. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Wonder what changed.
Life
more time,
changed.
More maybe Clone Wars, maybe more like screen time with Obi-Wan.
We did have an Obi-Wan vote that also had a Rey shout out attached to it.
Nice.
And then Kit Fisto's vote was Kit deserved better, which he did.
Yeah, he definitely did.
He got done dirty in Revenge of the Sith.
Real dirty.
So
doesn't even put up a fight.
Nope. But
boo.
I believe that wraps.
Who's the guy? Who's the guy? God, I love him. Tall head guy.
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah. Oh. What about the Wookiees?
There's a lot of weird things that happened with him after the fact. His species. Yeah, never mind. We'll talk about it some other time.
We'll have to get into that another time because
quite late and yeah.
He was a
quite
hooker
early.
or something, or he liked hookers.
No, but there's a whole whatever. We're not diving down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's not dive down the Ki-Adi-Mundi Wikipedia page. because we did it.
We did.
We counted down our top 5 dark side and light side Force users. We want to say thank you so much for listening to this episode, joining us on this very special May the 4th episode of the Multiverse Report. Matthew Beseda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. Again. I love it, and I look forward to next year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to start planning next year immediately.
I think
that's all we. What's that?
I think we already figured out what we were doing.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, like and subscribe to us if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the like button. Subscribe to our channel. You can also subscribe to us on like podcast apps and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that kind of stuff. Check out our Patreon if you want to be a member of our Patreon and get some cool stuff from us there.
So links for all that are in the show notes. There should be links to the full show note. Well, this one we don't have full show notes, but those are always in the. I modified all the YouTube stuff, so there's links and cool things. So check out all our socials. Everything else should be in the show notes. Be it email, be it our website, be it the socials you want to hit. Any of that. Like, follow, subscribe, and check out the Patreon.
And so, as the 2 suns set on the burnt corpses of Owen and Baru Lars, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the multiverse.